Hello everyone, this is Tetrafolium, and I'm here to talk about one of my early favorites of ADV. When I was first climbing the ladder, first time to get to 1500, Regice was my guy. He really was. This was before I discovered that Blissey was in the tier. That's a joke, by the way. I knew Blissey was one of the goats. But Regice really got me through some growing pains, and I want to talk a little bit about it. I'm calling Regice ADV's Fallen Titan. Well, because I've heard that the Regis are called Titans, like the Titan Pokemon. I don't know where I heard that from. Is that in the Pokedex somewhere? I don't know. But in any case, really is a Fallen Titan. Let's take a look at the viability rankings first, as we always do. We don't see it D rank or higher, so you know what that means. We got to check the E rank, and there it is. It's actually not that deep into the E rank. Number 33, that's pretty respectable. In most generations, the 33rd best Pokemon is, well, at least in modern generations, is an OU ranked Pokemon, and Regice was OU ranked actually for quite a while in ADV. It was sometime shortly after Raikou dropped out that Regice went to. I tried to find more specific data on when exactly Regice dropped, but I was not able to. The best I could do was I found a BKC video from like 5 years ago. Where BKC was talking about how bad Regice is, basically, in response to Raikou moving down. Basically, the idea was when Raikou dropped, a lot of people were saying, hey, wait a minute, Regice is worse than Raikou, and it kind of got caught in the crossfire there. Do I think that Regice is worse than Raikou? I think they do different things. Maybe you'll glean a little bit more about what I think when we get through the next slides. But needless to say, I do think Regice is definitely one of the better UUBLs. Some are arguing for it to come back up to OU, and I guess maybe I'll talk a little bit about whether I think that should be the case or not later as well. So the natural thing to look at with Regice is its ability to wall special attacks. And I put two of Regice's most apt comparisons in the tier next to it, Snorlax and Blissey. And first we're going to take a look at their base HP. So clearly Blissey has a wide gap between itself and every other Pokemon for HP. 255, I mean, I think that's like the highest number that could possibly exist. I actually think that is true. I don't think that the code allows for Pokemon to have a higher base stat than that. At least not back in like the Gen 2, Gen 3 era. But I digress. We're taking a look at what their HP stats look like depending on their investment. Regice is sitting at a respectable 301 with no investment, and an even more respectable 364 with some investment. Snorlax and Blissey obviously a lot higher. Now I will say Blissey, it's not worth it to invest in HP. There's a little bit of a note here about how to allocate EVs if you're trying to custom build some Pokemon. Pokemon that have a really high stat, like Blissey in its HP, they don't get comparatively that much in terms of like how well they will live a hit or how much damage they'll deal or whatever the case may be. Based on just EVs. Right, like if you're starting with a pool of 651 at base, adding another 63 to that is barely a 10% increase. It's not even a 10%. Whereas like Regice adding another 63 to its stat is like a 20% increase. So like that's a lot more significant, and I think that's apt to bring up because while Blissey is the queen, king, monarch, I don't know, of HP, Regice is the king. I'll say king because I believe reg comes from king, literally the word for king in Latin. It's got a really high special defense stat. It can hit up to 548 if you invest fully in it, although I will suggest not doing that, as we'll probably see later. Snorlax sitting there kind of in the middle. Really nice HP stat, really nice defense stat. I could pull up the physical defense stats, and that would favor Snorlax, but honestly not by a lot. I mean, Regice's physical defense is, well, actually Regice's physical defense is 100, so it's actually mogging Snorlax there too. So yeah, that's tough, buddy. Although I do think normal is a slightly better defensive type than ice. Maybe slightly is an understatement, but let's look at a little more what this conglomeration of HP and special defense actually means in terms of real calculations. So as our control, I've got a 252 modest Zapdos here, clicking Thunderbolt into all of these. This is pretty much the strongest neutral click into all three of these Pokemon that you will see in the tier, at least like from an unboosted attack. I mean, there might be like maybe Suicune's Hydro Pump might be a little stronger, but I mean Zapdos's Thunder would also be stronger, but we're gonna go with moves that are like you're commonly gonna see here. So Zapdos Thunderbolt, you're commonly gonna see that. Now modest, I don't know, but let's take a look at if we have no HP and no Spadef. So Regice is taking that 29.9 minimum, 35.2 maximum. Snorlax is going to take a little bit more, but they do have some overlapping roles, so it's not that different here. So now the HP, 252 HP, 0 special defense. Keep in mind, Snorlax has a higher HP stat than Regice does, so if you take what I said on the last slide, apply it in your head here, which one of these Pokemon do you think is going to get more out of investing in its HP? As in, which one's going to reduce the damage comparatively more? It's going to be Regice. So you see, this is about a 5-point jump here for Snorlax going 252 HP. It's like a 4-point jump, which I know that that's not much, but keep in mind that Regice is coming from already taking less damage, so like percentage wise it's a lot more than just 5 points would show you. I think, yeah, like I said, with Regice, it's about a 20% reduction in damage to go max HP. For Snorlax, it's a little closer to 10. I guess more like 15-ish, but I digress. So now let's take a look about adding Spadef to these. So this is where Snorlax can kind of swing back, right? Because Snorlax only has the 110 base special defense. So additively speaking, it's going to get more out of it. But Regice is still going to take less damage. But like, look at that. That's a 6-point swing for Snorlax almost. It's really good. Regice, it's only like, again, a 3-point swing. So kind of the same idea with Snorlax's HP. Like additively, it's not going to be much. Now, there's not going to be much drama here because the nature is a multiplicative effect, 10% increase, so that's going to decrease both of these damages by about 10%. So Regice is still going to win. But look at that. Max HP, max special defense is taking like barely 20% from Zapdos Thunderbolt. That's really, really impressive. What, I'm missing something? You want to know what Blissey is going to take from that? Okay, well, I guess we'll go through Blissey on its own because it's so special it needs to be highlighted on its own. 0 HP, 0 Spadef investment Blissey, which is the most common Blissey set. It's taking 19.6 to 23.1. Wait a second. Circle these. Blissey takes less damage with no investment than Regice does with max investment. That is absolutely insane. And to be honest, I did expect Blissey to come out on top here, but I did not expect it to come out on by so much. Just for the sake of curiosity, here's what Blissey would be taking if it invested. And this max investment here, 13.5 to 16.1. Keep in mind, this is a max modest Thunderbolt from Zapdos. That would take about 11 to 14 turns to KO Blissey through its leftovers. That's insane. And this is not even to discuss what Soft Boiled would do, because, yeah, that basically would end Zapdos' whole career. Zapdos literally gets more out of Thunder Waving or Toxicking the Blissey than clicking Thunderbolt into it. That's crazy. But because Blissey takes these hits so much better than Regice, you might be asking yourself, well, why would I use Regice when I could just use Blissey? Well, some of the other advantages that Blissey has that I didn't even talk about, well, I kind of touched on Soft Boiled for reliable recovery. Regice does not get Recover. It would be really nice if it did get Recover, and in fact, I think it probably would be still an OU ranked Pokemon and well respected if it did get Recover, but because it doesn't, it's kind of not that guy, you know? Blissey also gets utility moves like Wish and Heal Bell or Aromatherapy. I believe if you want to use Wish and Heal and one of these two other moves on the same set, you have to have Heal Bell. So maybe there's an argument for always running Heal Bell, never running Aromatherapy, so that you can bluff that you have Wish. But I don't know how many people actually know that. And in any case, there may be advantages to Aromatherapy. Like, I don't know if... is Imprison in this generation? It's so rarely seen. If it is, yes, it is. Dusclops gets it, for example. Misdreavus gets it, for example. I don't know how many Pokemon get Imprison and Heal Bell. Absolutely none. And then Heal Bell and Aromatherapy. Or, excuse me, Imprison and Aromatherapy. Also absolutely none. So there's no real advantage in that sense. So maybe just run Heal Bell. Wow, I'm talking more about Blissey than I am about Regice. But we're almost done. Blissey has Calm Mind. Regice does not. And while both of them are weak to fighting, Blissey is neutral. Oops, that's a typo right there. Versus Rock, Steel, and Fire. So... yeah, I mean, Regice is not looking really good in comparison. I didn't even talk about, like, fire coverage, where Blissey has access to Flamethrower Fire Blast, where Regice does not. We could compare to Snorlax, but I think because Snorlax is a physical attacker, it kind of has a little bit different utility. So I think most people could understand, oh, like, maybe if I want a special attacking version of Snorlax, I would use Regice, but Blissey is kind of... flexing on the Regice over here. But let's take a look at Regice's advantages. Because Regice has a higher special attack, base 100, whereas Blissey is base 75, its attacks are just going to hit harder. Comparing both 252 plus natures and their ice beams, Regice will deal more damage than Blissey will after a Calm Mind boost. So that's pretty good. If you need immediate ice coverage, Regice is just better than Blissey. Now, after 2 Calm Minds and so on and so forth, it kind of snowballs out of control. Pun certainly intended. But you might not always have the opportunity to click so many Calm Minds. Like, for example, if you're against a Fizz offense team, like a Tyranitar Rock Slide is not going to let Blissey just get away with getting to +6. Regice has Explosion, and that's probably the biggest reason why you would use Regice over Blissey. Explosion is such a good utility move for generating momentum and threatening walls, particularly other Blissey, that it's almost worth using any Pokemon that has Explosion. I mean, hell, Quillfish sometimes gets used as a spiker with Explosion, just because it has Explosion. Regice also has Focus Punch and Superpower for niche coverage options. That being said, Regice's attack stat is a little bit on the low side, so it's not really going to be able to get one-shot kills on things like Tyranitar and Blissey. It could two-shot, especially with Focus Punch, not lowering your attack stat, but that is something to note, and possibly a reason why you might want to use Regice. But with all of that, I feel like Regice should turn that frown upside down, whatever sort of frown it could make. I will say, though, that these sprites that I get it from a site. Maybe I should have said this earlier, but I get it from a site called PMD Sprite Repository. I think it's sprites.pmdcollab.org. Like, I'm always impressed with how expressive they can make some of these Pokemon. Like, Regice doesn't even have a face, and look at how happy it looks here. That's awesome. But let's compare it to some offensive Pokemon. So, Regice, it gets Thunderbolt and obviously Ice Beam. This is a classic combination called Bolt Beam. Bolt being Thunderbolt, Beam being Ice Beam. But more broadly, it just refers to having electric and ice coverage. So even if your ice type move was Ice Punch, that's still Bolt Beam. If your electric type move was Thunder, you still consider that Bolt Beam. So a lot of the Pokemon that have Bolt Beam coverage have to sacrifice Ice or Electric and pick like a weaker option. So for the ones that have to pick weaker Ice coverage, I've got Jirachi, Zapdos, Jolteon, Raikou, and Gengar. All of these Pokemon get Thunderbolt. For Jirachi and Gengar, they're going to have to use Ice Punch rather than Ice Beam. And then for the electric types, they're going to have to run HP Ice, which is even weaker than Ice Beam, and also takes up your hidden power slot, which is really not ideal. You would maybe want to have like an HP Grass on them instead. Gengar and Jirachi can get away with running HP Grass because they have Ice Punch, which is really nice. And then for weaker electric coverage, I have Jinx and Suicune, both of which would have to run HP Electric if they're going to have electric coverage at all. I will say, HP Electric Jinx, I don't think I've ever seen that before, but you know what? Some unlucky Gyarados user is going to come in on a Jinx for no apparent reason, maybe to sleep sack, and get hit by an HP Electric, and they're going to come to this video and comment down below how angry that made them, and I'm going to laugh. I'm going to enjoy that one a lot. Suicune will sometimes run HP Electric to hit Gyarados. Gyarados with Taunt is really difficult for Suicune to break through because it can't get its Calm Mind boost, it can't roar the Gyarados away, and Gyarados can start setting up Dragon Dances in its face. But if you have HP Electric, then you can just eliminate the Gyarados, which is really nice. But not every Bolt Beam Pokemon has to make a concession here. here are the list of Pokemon that are used in OU, either OU ranked, UUBL ranked, and like actually use special moves, or I have Lantern there, who is a UU ranked Pokemon, but it has been seeing some decent usage in recent times, so I'm going to give it a shout out here. Awesome for you, Lantern. But I think one thing you'll notice about some of these Pokemon, like our two culprits here, Blissey and Snorlax, coming back again. But like for example, Snorlax and Gyarados, they're physical attackers, so they really don't get much out of using Ice Beam and Thunderbolt together. The other Pokemon here do have respectable special attack stats. Blissey's a little bit lower on the 75, but of these Pokemon, actually only I meant to highlight which Pokemon are doing as much damage as Regice, but you'll have to just trust me that Starmie and Dragonite both have base 100 special attack, the same as Regice, and Porygon 2 actually has a base 105 special attack, which makes it stronger than Regice in theory, but none of these Pokemon get stab on either of those, so it's kind of a little bit of a fake win for them. Lantern, I guess technically would have a stronger Thunderbolt because of stab, but its Ice Beam would be considerably weaker because it's only base, I think, 76 special attack. You have to forgive me if I mess that up because I'm just doing it off the dome right now. Yeah, so here's a little matchup spread for Regice. I will say Regice has a less generous matchup spread than many other Pokemon. I don't think that there's any one Pokemon in the tier that Regice absolutely nails. I mean, even like your ×4 weak Pokemon like Salamence and Flygon are not always that bad into Regice. I even say that Regice is only really favored against Flygon in good position because Flygon, if it gets like a Toxic off and it like if it's a defensive Flygon and protects, like it can chip a lot into Regice, and then if it gets down to about like 30-ish%, then Rock Slide or Earthquake can pick up the KO. If you're running a CB Flygon, then you can actually 2-hit KO. I guess technically Salamence could do a similar thing, but Salamence also is incentivized to run mixed a lot of the time, and mixed Salamence Fire Blast does not really feel like super effective damage into Regice, and Regice is going to absolutely smash these Salamence for trying that. As you know, other Pokemon here, I think it's notable, like Celebi and Zapdos are notoriously difficult to like catch in the same slot. There are some Pokemon that have like Rock Slide and HP Bug coverage, but they're not always like the most reliable because Celebi and Zapdos can cover each other's weakness and switch it between them. Regice just needs Ice Beam to hit both, so that's really good. Starmie is probably the Pokemon that Regice has the best matchup into, because offensive Starmie is like Regice is shrugging off those hits, and defensive Starmie, I believe, is still getting 2-hit KO'd by a max special attack Thunderbolt. And yeah, I mean, Thunderwave, you could Thunderwave the Regice, but Regice is pretty slow. It's not the worst thing in the world for Regice to get Thunderwaved. In fact, sometimes it would prefer that so it doesn't get toxic. So yeah, Starmie really has the toughest go at it here. There are a lot of Pokemon here, like these special attackers sitting in the middle tier, that Regice can go toe-to-toe with, but because Regice does not have a way to heal itself back up, some of these special attackers can like out heal Regice, or go for boosts, or go for status to fend off the Regice, as it were. There are plenty of Pokemon that have really strong physical attacks, especially super effective coverage, like Medichamp's Brick Break, or Charizard if it's running like Rock Slide, that can handle Regice pretty well. But Regice, if it lands an Ice Beam on them on Switch In, or a Thunderbolt, or gets an opportunity to Thunder Wave, then Regice might be able to bring it a little more back into its favor. And then the Shattered tier is Pokemon that Regice is not really doing much damage to, and these Pokemon are going to smash Regice if they get to hit. Snorlax is probably the least immediately threatening, but trust me when I say, like, getting body slammed over and over by Snorlax is not something you want for your Regice. Tyranitar and Metagross are extremely dangerous because they can set up in the face of Regice and just win the game. And then Heracross, I mean, yeah, Heracross, even if it doesn't have a fighting type move, Heracross is doing tons of damage to Regice. Regice can't really clap back with Thunder Wave because you just might give it a Guts boost. You do, against a uninvested Heracross, you could 2-hit KO it, but the chances that Heracross is going to switch in and then not threaten to KO you so that you can manage to get your 2-hit KO is so low. So I just can't really give Regice the benefit of the doubt there. There's some Pokemon here like Milotic that you would think, oh, Regice should be good into that because Regice is not going to take any damage. But the thing is, even with super effective Thunderbolt, you're not even 2-hit KOing Milotic. You're going to need a crit into a para to take it out. And Milo is probably the most hacked Pokemon in the generation because it sits in, it's so passive, it's just taking a bunch of hits. So it's very likely that it's going to get crit, that the secondary effects are going to happen on it. But Regice needs like more than most to get through Milotic. So just wanted to make note of that. So here's our standard Regice set. It's kind of selling out for the explosion. You see it has a lot of attack investment and quiet nature. Quiet is a very niche nature. It's plus special attack minus speed. There are very few special attackers that can get away with not running speed. Regice is one of them because it's so slow, but like, you know, part of the reason why special offense works so well is because a lot of the Pokemon on it are so fast. Like your Jirachi, Celebi are base 100. Suicune is base 85, which is pretty respectable. But Regice is kind of bucking that trend in a sense. We have 104 attack so that we can deal 75% to a modest Blissey with Explosion. So the idea with that is that if you have 3 layers of spikes up, then Blissey is dead. You can switch to a Pokemon that will deal at least 25% to Blissey and outspeed it, which is not extremely difficult if you have a physical attacker on your team. And Blissey has to choose whether it's going to die to this physical attacker or it's going to switch out and die later. So that's nice for Regice. You're also leaving Curselax in range of a standard Dugtrio EQ. That's pretty good. Note that Regice, while it's slow and you're running a minus nature, you're still going to be faster than Snorlax. So you can get your Explosion off first, and then the Dugtrio can come in and clean up. But some of the problems with this, because you're cutting pretty significantly into your special attack investment, you're never going to 2-hit KO a standard Skarmory if it has Protect. It can Protect once and then get itself out of 2-hit KO range, which is not good because then Skarmory can get a Spike Up and then also Toxic you. And you only have a 25% chance to 2-hit KO a Spadef Zapdos in the sand, which is not fantastic. I don't know if this set is really like speaking to me. the Thunder Wave, Hidden Power Fire dichotomy is kind of interesting. And then Thunder, I don't know if I want to click Thunder that much. I mean, you could probably get through some of the problems, like not being able to 2-hit KO Skarmory if you use Thunder instead, but I don't love that level of inconsistency, says the guy who's suggesting that you use Rest, Sleep, Talk, Heracross. But I have a slightly different take on Regice. So we're going to run more special attack investment. We're going to go all the way up to 228 with the plus special attack nature. I mean, come on, we need all the special attack we can get here. And then we're going to cut, instead of cutting into it for the sake of more attack, we're actually going to get a little bit more defense. I'll touch on that in a second. With this extra special attack, we're 89% chance to 2-hit KO a Skarmory with our Thunderbolt if it only gets one turn of leftovers. Now, if it gets a second turn of leftovers, I think it goes down at like 50%, so it's like about like I think it's like 30 to 40% to get the 2-hit KO, but that's still a lot better than never getting it. So that's a good thing. Thunderbolt plus HP Fire is guaranteed to kill the Fortress. If you see that, that's pretty nice. Let's I'm gonna actually pull up the calc here. We've got 228 versus Fortress. The standard Fortress, of course, is running max HP, max Spadef. With this, we are dealing. You see HP Fire. Yeah, so minimum, we will deal 25.9, and then with the Thunderbolt, and then HP Fire is dealing 76.8. So I guess technically if you low roll both of them, you might not kill the Fortress, but like the chances that you do not get there is pretty slim. You would have to get like basically low end roll on both of the attacks, which is I just think not super likely. So a very good chance to kill Fortress, we should say. We're extremely favored to live 2 timid Moltres Flamethrowers. I believe it's something ridiculous, like 2% chance that it gets the rolls that it needs to kill. It's more likely that it will crit or burn you than getting those rolls. And we're 70% likely to get a 2-hit KO with Ice Beam, and this is assuming that there's no sand up. Keep in mind that Moltres, because it's weak to electric, Thunderbolt does more, so you can guarantee a kill with a Thunderbolt and an Ice Beam, but it is nice that you could click Ice Beam twice, because you could catch something switching in. If the Moltres is using, like if it's, say, Modest and Fire Blast, we should still live that as well. So we're probably not very likely to stay in and 1v1, but we could in this right scenario. We're more likely to kill a Spadef Zapdos if the sand is up. I think it's still technically possible if there is no sand, but if we happen to be up against a Zapdos in the sand, we're a lot better there. With this defense, we are guaranteed to live an unboosted Tyranitar Rock Slide, which I think we could have lived it without the defense, but this extra bit of defense means that we can live a Choice Banded Aerodactyl as well, as long as it's not adamant. But we kind of touched on in the previous video with Dugtrio that like Aerodactyl really does not want to run adamant most of the time. It doesn't like to give up its speed advantage particularly against Jolteon and also against Dugtrio. Now, would I suggest that you stay in on an Aerodactyl Rock Slide if you could help it? No, because the chances that it gets a crit or a flinch on you is not worth risking the entire Regice, but you might be in a scenario where you don't have a rock resist anymore, you still have your full health Regice, and you just have to take this, like otherwise you're just going to lose. And the amount of special attack investment that we're cutting into, I think it's worth it. We're also likely to survive 2 Jolly Dugtrio Earthquakes. It's not guaranteed, but like it's a really low chance for Dugtrio to get there. And then finally our Explosion. So we've completely cut out our entire attack stat from the standard spread. So we're not dealing a ton of damage with our Explosion, but 63% minimum to a modest Blissey is still good enough that we can go to one of our physical attackers and threaten the Blissey out, and or get up like a Dragon Dance with, say, Tyranitar to potentially win the game. We also have 4 EVs in speed. This helps us to speed tie other Regice if we happen to run into one, but we'll also outspeed a min-speed Umbreon. I don't know how much that's going to matter because Umbreon is such an unpopular Pokemon, especially on ladder, but it is nice that we can outspeed it, I guess. Otherwise we would be speed tying it, and then it's kind of hard to calculate what you should do if you're not sure if you're going to move first or not. Whereas this will guarantee that we will. I'll spoil it right now. We did not run into an Umbreon, so we're not really going to see that come into play, but it could happen. I was in the lab, tuning some EVs here. Another spread you could do if you're not super keen on not having a strong enough Explosion for Blissey. If you only run 52 attack, you'll deal 68.8 minimum. That's enough that Blissey will die if it switches into 3 layers of spikes and takes sand damage. Note that sand always goes before the leftovers recovery, so any Pokemon that comes in and is in the dies to sand threshold, so like 6.25%, it will die before it's able to get its leftovers off. With 200 HP, you'll still live an Adamant Tyranitar Rock Slide after Sand, which is maybe helpful for you. Maybe you want the Ice Beam chip. Now, if you're cutting this much into your HP, then you can forget about Choice Band Aerodactyl. But that's also like a very niche thing, I acknowledge, so I don't think that's fantastic. We also don't have Thunder Wave on this Regice, which can make us a little worse into Steel types that would love to switch in on Regice. HP Fire is pretty good, well, really good for a Fortress. It is decent damage if you catch a Metagross switching in, but because you're slower and you're usually going to fold to a Meteor Mash, I would not advise staying in to HP Fire it again. But if you catch it on Switch, that's pretty nice. Jirachi is kind of a problem for this set. Thunder Wave is a lot better into Jirachi because it gives you some progress. But I find that sometimes Jirachi has Substitute, and if it substitutes on your T-Wave, you're kind of boned. So if you're going to stay in to try to 1v1 Jirachi, sometimes Hidden Power Fire is a little better because you can break the sub at least before it starts Calm Minding. So it's not 100% bad. And then the last one is Magneton. Having HP Fire, you can actually 1v1 the Magneton. If you don't have HP Fire, then Magneton's just going to get all of its status off on you, and it can potentially 1v1 you. So that's not ideal. So what team structure are we gonna do with Regice? Yeah, if you watched my Metachamp video, you saw I had a Regice on that team, but I want to show off a little bit of a different team here. So this is like a spikeless or mixed offense team. Sometimes these terms are used interchangeably, but Regice on this sort of team is like a compromise between Snorlax and Magneton. So you might see this kind of team with a Snorlax or with a Magneton. It depends on whether you are more scared of Skarmory or of like Blissey. Regice can kind of help you out with both. It's not perfect into both, but it is better than Snorlax is against Skarmory and better than Magneton is against Blissey, that's for sure. We have offensive Swampert and Starmie to annoy opposing Tyranitar and Metagross. We have a Super Rachi. I believe this is the same Super Rachi set that I showcased in the last video. And we are not necessarily missing Bolt Beam coverage on Jirachi because we have Regice to handle that for us. We have a fast mixed Mence, fast meaning max speed to 328 to handle Celebi and bulky DDT Tars. Bulky DDT Tar only hits about, I think, 304 after a boost, so we'll still be able to outspeed that. And a lot of times Tyranitar is not expecting that. So that could be nice. And then the last is we have a fast Lumberry T-Tar to threaten things in the mid-game. It's the best thing that can come in on Blissey after a Regice explosion. I mean, granted, Swampert and Salamence are also pretty good, but because we have Lumberry on T-Tar, we are not scared of anything that Blissey will do to us, and if it goes for Soft Boiled, then that's basically a free DD for us. We could opt to DD again and threaten a one-shot kill on the weakened Blissey, or we could just go straight for our Rock Slide and get our much-deserved Blissey kill there. So, yeah, that's kind of it. We're going to go into the replays, and we're going to see if Regice was dropped from OU too soon. So let's close out of that. Buried Relic from Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. This was such a great dungeon. Really puts the hair on your chest, the first 99 floor dungeon. Mew and the Regis are so cool in that. I would just point that out because some of you may not know. You may not be familiar with Ball, with the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, but you should play it if you get a chance to. This one, yeah, you should know this song. This is what plays when you fight a Reggie in Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald. All right. Starting off, Salamence versus Tyranitar. Against Tyranitar, I usually just want to click Brick Break. I usually don't kill, but I shouldn't die to a Rock Slide. If it's Ice Beam, then so be it. But my team with Regice deals pretty well with a special Tyranitar. Against Zapdos, I'm going to Regice. I get T-Waved, but that's not the worst thing in the world, and I Thunderbolt. So one thing that you'll see me do in a lot of situations versus a Zapdos is I will click Thunderbolt. You might be saying, well, isn't that kind of stupid because you have Ice Beam and that should rock the Zapdos. And yes, I agree with you, but a lot of times a Steel type is going to switch into Regice, and I would if it happens to be Fortress, I'd rather catch it and then put it in range for a HP Fire kill. In this case, it was Jirachi, so I get more chip than I would have with Ice Beam, and I also get the Paralysis, which is really nice. Now I'll go to Pert. I get Body Slam crit, and that's ultimately fine. I go for Hydro Pump because it should deal good damage into the Jirachi, and it'll catch the Zapdos on switch. Now I'm going back to Regice. Regice is really good at scouting the hidden power from Zapdos. As we see there, that's a hidden power Grass. So I know that my Swampert is not going to beat that. Against the Jirachi, I am going to opt to stay in to try to get HP fire damage off on it. I want to force it to wish so I can get a free switch. I get a lucky double para on my opponent, but I figure, oh, well, I mean, let me go ahead and get some more damage maybe. And we're just both getting parried here. Jimothy Cool just put out a video, I think playing Ranbats, talking about how paralysis is kind of crazy in this generation sometimes. And, you know, this is maybe lending credence to that. I don't know. But now I'm thinking it's safe to get the Swampert in. I know the Zapdos is coming, so I'll go for Ice Beam. I don't kill this because this is a defense-invested Zapdos of some kind. And then Baton passes to Tyranitar, who's going to Focus Punch my Swampert. Ouch. But this actually puts me in Torrent range, and I will OHKO a Tyranitar with a Torrent boosted Hydro Pump. So that's actually pretty good for me. And this is like hopefully going to showcase as well offensive Swampert. I'm not going to talk about Swampert probably for a long time, but I really love offensive Swampert, and it's putting in work here. So actually I catch Heracross coming in with an HP Fire. Ice Beam technically does a little more damage, but both have the opportunity to 2-hit KO, which is really nice. I go to Salamence to Intimidate, and I take a Rock Slide for my troubles, but it is dead to a Dragon Claw. I catch Starmie there, and then Regice can come back in and wall the Starmie. So even though it's paralyzed, and it feels like it's not doing much, it is stopping the Starmie and the Zapdos from getting any sort of offensive pressure against my team. And I can provide a little bit of offensive pressure against Jirachi, at least enough to force it to click Wish and not click Body Slam as I go to my Swampert. I'll Ice Beam again because I know that the Zapdos is coming in. I'm kind of fishing for a freeze, to be quite honest. But I am getting a lot of HP back on my Swampert, which is really nice. Baton Pass to Heracross. I don't remember if I decide to sack here or not, and I do. Rock Slide misses, but I get paralyzed, so that sucks. Rock Slide hits me, but I actually live it, and I can Ice Beam and kill the Heracross. So, and it leaves me at perfect health to die, and then come in and get my pressure back on. So I have offensive Starmie here versus a defensive Starmie. My T-Bolt does over half, which is nice. The Starmie is going to be recover looping, and I get a critical hit there. I mean, obviously that mattered. I would not have killed the Starmie otherwise, but had I not gotten that critical hit, I would have just kept clicking T-Bolt until this Starmie got scared, until I got paralyzed, and then I would have switched and probably tried to engineer that scenario again. But I get off with a full health Starmie. I can go to Tyranitar here against the Zapdos, and I should live 2 Thunderbolts. If I get parried, that's okay because I have Lumberry. Now Dragon Dance. Swampert comes in, which would stop my Tyranitar, but I actually have HP Grass as my 4th move on Tyranitar, which will put the Swampert in range to get gobbled up by my Ments. Doesn't matter what Swampert it is, it's not surviving an HP Grass. If it was a defensive Swampert, it wouldn't die. It will not die to my Salamence's HP Grass from full, so that's why I need that chip. I'll just get Dragon Claw chip on this Zapdos, and I think at this point my Jirachi should win the game. Zapdos goes for T-Wave, but as long as I have good boosts, I should not be threatened by this. I'll decide to go for Psychic there, and I get a crit, which probably mattered, but I know that this thing doesn't have rest, so I knew I was going to beat it down eventually. At least put it into Ice Beam range from Starmie, and then Swampert should be able to clean up the Jirachi, but instead this Jirachi is just not able to break through me, and my opponent decides to forfeit there, which is respectable. Yeah, I think that was a pretty good showing for Regice. Let's see if I can replicate that in the next one. Mensin versus Tar. This is a pretty familiar scenario. The Ops, they will not let me get the Brick Break off, but Fortress comes in. Fortress is a target for our Regice, so let's see if we can catch it. Obviously, this Fortress does not want to stay into Mixed Ment's Fire Blast. Here's Blissey. I will go Jirachi to eat the Ice Beam, and then I'm going to go Swampert to see if it has T-Wave. Because it switched out there, I'm guessing it didn't. So that's pretty nice. I'll go for a Hydro Pump, and I catch Gengar, which is really nice. I go to Starmie on a Giga Drain, which was probably not very smart of me. I was kind of expecting a Will-O-Wisp, to be honest, but I am faster, and my Hydro Pump is threatening to an offensive Gengar, so I go for it. I actually miss into the Zapdos, but Zapdos is in, so Regice is coming in, so I Clockwork here. So here comes the Fortress, and I go for Thunderbolt. Important to note, again, you do not kill Fortress with a raw HP Fire, or with the simple chip that you get from Ice Beam. So this is why I go for Thunderbolt so often against Zapdos. But the Fortress is in. I am faster, guaranteed by the leftovers, and I go for Hidden Power and kill it. So a lot of... and I catch... I don't think I've ever missed a Fortress here. Everybody leaves their Fortress in because Regice 1 is so uncommon now that it's kind of fallen out of the meta. And 2, people have pushed the propaganda that Regice needs Thunder Wave, and you know, I'm just here to tell you, you do not have to have Thunder Wave on Regice to get value out of it. Now, there are definitely situations where it would be nice to have Thunder Wave. Like if I could click Thunder Wave on a Zapdos, or like into whatever Zapdos is going to switch into, that could be really nice, but like I was able to kill an entire Fortress here, and there's going to be no spikes against my team, which frees up my Starmie to just click buttons. I don't have to worry about spinning at all, which is really, really good. This is a sub Tyranitar here. I'm a little wary of sub HP Grass, so I actually switched to Jirachi. It turns out to be an Earthquake Tyranitar. At this stage, I'm more scared of letting the sub stay up, so I'll sack the entire Jirachi to get rid of it. I can go to Swampert here and click a Hydro Pump. Now I'll go to Regice, and I scout the Hidden Power. It's actually Hidden Power Ice. So now I know that my Swampert can 1v1 the Zapdos, as long as I'm at good health. I Ice Beam, and this is possibly in range of a Thunderbolt. So my opponent wisely goes to Gengar, but I read that and go to Tyranitar. I dodge a Wisp and DD. I don't know how much it mattered that I dodged the Wisp. Probably not much, because I am Lumberry, but my opponent doesn't know that, so I guess that changes their whole thing. Here comes Swampert, except it's actually not Swampert, it's Quagsire. But Quagsire is actually better for me because it's weaker. And I go for my HP Grass. So the first time that you've ever seen a DD boosted Tyranitar click Hidden Power Grass into a Quagsire, I would bet any money on that. If you can find a tournament replay where that has happened, link it to me, please. I go for Earthquake. I don't get the roll on this T-Tar. But now I can just go Swampert. I'm assuming that because it had enough investment to live that Earthquake, that it's not going to be faster than my Swampert, which is 204 speed to outspeed bulky DD T-Tar before it gets its boost. My opponent goes for Rest on Zapdos, but I don't care. I'm just going to Ice Beam. You will die if you stay in. So my opponent actually goes to Gengar, takes Big Chip on the Ice Beam, and gets frozen. That's pretty bad, but I was going to go to Regice regardless, and to not risk the Thaw there, I will go Regice here. At this stage, though, because the Gengar is frozen, I don't see it as a viable switch into Explosion, so I will explode on the Blissey. And this is probably a bold Blissey because it takes a little less than what I was expecting. It should... it should have been in range to die to sand from my explosion, but it's not. So I can go to Swampert and I click Hydro Pump. Now Hydro Pump seemed a little bit needlessly risky there, but I also wanted to catch Zapdos if that happened to come in. And I figured because I have Focus Punch on the Swampert, spoiler alert, I was okay if I missed it. I will go to Salamence on this Giga Drain. And Sand suggests to me that I'm actually faster, which is another reason why max speed Salamence is kind of nice. My opponent can go to Zapdos, which I know has HP Ice. So I can go to Swampert. I eat that up. And then I can just Ice Beam out and win the game. Have you ever seen Swampert as like a win con? I don't know. I mean, I've seen Curse Swampert as kind of a win con, but not exactly like this kind of Swampert. I am running kind of low on Ice Beams, but I think at this stage I still have 5 left to click. Gengar's going to die there. Zapdos will come in, and had my opponent not forfeited, I still would have had enough Ice Beams to kill it before it woke up, so that's pretty nice. And then I also have Starmie in the back to help me out. So I was pretty safe to win that game. All right, next one. Lead Tyranitar against Salamence. Wow, this is like a trend. Is anybody gonna let me Brick Break them? No. We see a switch to Skarmory, which suggests to me is not going to be a Fortress. But I will click Fire Blast. My opponent wisely scouts with Protect. Probably going to switch, but actually doesn't. I go for Fire Blast and get something really nice. And my opponent goes for Toxic. You know, I am really against your first click with Skarmory being Toxic. Even a little bit against going for Protect turn 1. Because you never know if the opponent has a Magneton. Now, having Magneton with a lead Mixments with Fire Blast is a little bit much, but you never know. And if I went to Magneton there, I would have completely destroyed the Skarmory, and it wouldn't have even gotten any layers up. So that's not nice. And going for Toxic against Mence is also not fantastic. You don't know if the Mence has Refresh. If you miss it, you don't get anything out of it, and the Mence can always just stay in and keep clicking Fire Blast to keep you from getting spikes up. So I don't necessarily agree with trying to go for the Toxic there, but I understand, like, maybe that's your best way to get through the Mence. I get a crit Fire Blast on the Swampert. This is potentially in range of Hidden Power, so I will go for it, but the Swampert protects. At this stage, I will switch, predicting a switch out, and I get Zapdos, which is Regice's favorite Pokemon to switch into, apparently. But the Zapdos has Light Screen. It's really interesting. I will go to Swampert, and I dodge another Toxic. I'm getting really lucky with this. I have not refreshed Swampert, so I can't really afford to stay in. So I will go to Jirachi, and my opponent reveals Hidden Power. I'm assuming Grass. But Dugtrio comes in to trap my Jirachi. As you know from my last video, my Jirachi is built to live one Dugtrio hit, but because of the Light Screen, I actually am not able to kill. Which kind of sucks. But now I can go to Mence against the Dugtrio. Swampert will come in, but I will double back to Regice. I was predicting Zapdos to want to come in. This Swampert is really, really dangerous, because if I had clicked HP Grass into the Dugtrio, I would have murdered this Swampert. The Swampert will get a Toxic off on my Regice, and I will get a nice Ice Beam off. It's actually a little more damage than I was expecting, but it's okay. Just Ice Beam into a Protect. I will Ice Beam, get the Tyranitar on switch. I'm always expecting like a freeze there. So nasty to switch into that. But I will go to Swampert, and Swampert is really good into Skarmory. Because I have max special attack Hydro, that should kill. Zapdos will come in. I will go for Ice Beam there. So that was really risky. I could have eaten an HP Grass, but I decided I wanted to get some chip on the Zapdos here and actually get the Freeze, which is supremely fortunate. I'll go to Regice, not risking the Zapdos unthawing there. Tyranitar will come in, and at this stage I will explode. I figured that I'm not doing enough damage with Ice Beam to anything here, and even if Dugtrio comes in, like, whatever. But Explosion will help me get ahead of the Tyranitar. It will do the most damage to Swampert, and I can figure out what to do thereafter. But this is actually the perfect scenario because I'm threatening a Brick Break here with Tyranitar. No matter what switches in, I can break this screen so that next turn I will be able to do more damage. So I can go for Dragon Claw here, and I don't quite kill the Zapdos. It does not thaw, and it will die to Sand. I don't know if it had... there's no shot it had Rest last, so it could have gotten T-Bolt damage or a Toxic off on me, which would have been nasty, but kind of whatever. I go for HP Grass to weaken the Swampert. Put it in range for my Swampert to kill. But unfortunately, Torrent Boosted Surf will kill my Tyranitar. I Earthquake, kill that Tyranitar. Dugtrio comes in, probably just an Earthquake to put me in range of Arrow. Arrow will come in. At this point, I will go to Salamence. If it clicks Rock Slide, fair play, but I will live that, and I keep this attack debuff on. I go to Swampert and I get crit, which is really not nice. But Starmie should live this as well. And I don't get flinched, and I hit my Hydro Pump, so I'm good there. That was a little bit scary, but I needed to hit Hydro Pump. I don't believe that T-Bolt or Ice Beam would have dealt enough damage. I would have needed the secondary effect to come in for me to actually win. So I played to my only out here. Okay, and this, well, I mean, that's kind of spoiled what the result of that game was. This game here, this is not necessarily the best showcase of Regice, but I just had to highlight something here. I think there's still something to be learned. Metagross lead, I will go to Swampert. Moltres comes in. Cloyster, and then I'll go to Regice. Regice gets the Thunderbolt kill on Cloyster, so I guess that's kind of nice. Metagross comes in. I will go to Swampert to eat the Meteor Mash. My opponent goes to Blissey. I Hydro Pump, get a good amount of chip there. Moltres will come in on my Earthquake. Well played. I'll go to Tyranitar here. If I get HP Grasped, fair play. If I get Whisked, fair play. But I do go there and eat that. It's still nice to get the Sand up, though. Salamence should be threatening this out. I go for Dragon Claw and get a nice crit on Swampert, which is really nice because now HP Grass should be killing, but I anticipate that my opponent will not let that happen. I go to Starmie, hopefully able to get the spin off or to stop Moltres from switching in, but there's actually last Gengar, which makes sense on a Cloyster team. I don't want Starmie to stay in and take the Thunderbolt, so I will go to Regice. My opponent's most likely going to go Blissey or Metagross. I get an Ice Beam off on Metagross. Decent chip, not fantastic though. At this stage, I'll just sack a Tyranitar. Then I will go to Swampert. So my opponent will go Blissey. I Hydro Pump and I miss. I don't know what the Blissey will do, but I want to threaten it with Focus Punch. It Ice Beams to break my focus here. And then, yeah. What would you do in this situation here? So, you're up against the Blissey, right? You can Earthquake it. You will take an Ice Beam. You'll go down to just on the cusp of dying to the next Ice Beam. But you could force Blissey into a situation where it's going to have to stay low, or it's going to have to soft boil, then risk getting hit by a focus punch. All right. So I'm thinking if I'm my opponent here, right? Earthquake is so likely from Swampert. Maybe I want to go Moltres or Gengar. So I click Hydro Pump and I hit it and I kill this Moltres. And my opponent says, okay, let me move this over a little bit. Unwinnable matchup, sucks because you're terrible. That's just so funny to me. Listen, don't get mad about Mons like that. Like, sometimes people are thinking about the game in a way that just happens to benefit them. If my opponent stayed in Blissey and Ice Beamed, I was probably just going to lose the game. I didn't have much counterplay to that, because Starmie and Regice are not really going to break through what's the Blissey. Neither is Salamence. And yeah, like that could be bad. But I sort of figured, like, based on the way that my opponent was playing, that I could maybe catch the Moltres, and if I did, I would just win on the spot, because then yeah, nothing is threatening the Swampert really anymore. So that's really nice. This is not a good mentality. Unwinnable matchup, certainly not. If my opponent made any number of other plays, they probably could have been fine. I don't know what their Metagross was. Presumably not Agility, but Agility Metagross could have been a fine win con. Yeah, any number of things, really. And yeah, sucks because you're terrible is just so funny to me. If you see this guy on the ladder, wish him well. That's what I would like for you to do. Keep him in your thoughts. But in any case, that was Regice. No, it was my Shadow offensive Swampert propaganda, but that is Regice. If you would like to see another Regice team, you can check out my Metacham video where I have a Regice on that team. Also a Charizard if you're into other underrepresented Pokemon in the tier. But yeah, that's kind of it. That's all I have to say about Regice. I guess if you pressed me on it, would I move Regice back up to OU if I had the keys to the kingdom, if I was deciding? I'll be honest, probably not. I do think it's good. I do think it has a place in the metagame, and I do think that you should use it, but I also acknowledge, like, there's so many common Pokemon that Regice struggles against, and just because it's really good against Zapdos does not mean that it's, like, it really, like, solidifies a spot in the metagame, you know? But once again, if you are struggling against Zapdos, you want a more offensive or immediately threatening thing other than Blissey, then Regice is great for that, and yeah, I hope to see it on the ladder some more. I think another thing you could try, though, is Regice with Dugtrio. I don't have a team like that, but it's certainly very doable. A lot of Pokemon, like a lot of these Pokemon that have Explosion but aren't like super duper strong one-shotting the Blissey, love to be paired with Dugtrio for that, for the reason of killing the Blissey off. But yeah, so I'm encouraging you. This is my challenge for you if you're at this stage. You should build a Regice Dugtrio team and see what you can do with it. Yeah, if you're not digging this team here. All right, well, that's it. I have to think about what I'm going to do for the next video. So I hope to see you guys for that video.